Hello and welcome to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is level 2, and this is a lesson about healthy human sexuality. So I'm breaking up this lesson into two parts. The first part is about human sexuality when things are functioning in the way that they were intended to function. And then the second part will be about the way that the system of human sexuality has been hijacked and distorted, and how that has affected human biology and human culture, and really it is evidenced in the world that we see today. So the first thing, what I have here is an image from, this is from Children of True Humanity, and when I include the anthropomorphic human form in my paintings, I always try to include both a male form, which is this one on the left, and a female form, which is this one on the right, in order to have balance of the genders represented. Now, although the human sexuality and reproduction are primarily associated with the red chakra and the orange chakra, I am here in this lesson to tell you about how really all of your chakras need to be engaged and associated with the practice of healthy sexuality, or sexuality as it was intended to be expressed. So everything about interacting before the physical act of sexual intercourse is about lining up the chakras between partners, and that really sexual intercourse for both recreational and spiritual purposes of growing closer and intimacy, and for reproductive purposes, all has to do with lining up the chakras. So this is very, very different than what we'll get into in the second part. I'm doing some compare and contrast here in the current time and place of a human culture, the way that sexuality is perceived as like the baseline, like the foundation. Like, you can always have sex with someone even if you don't connect on all of these other levels, on the level of emotion and heart. Wait, let's go through all of these lovely levels. Sexuality is meant to comprise all of the chakras connecting. So that would mean, yes, you're connecting on a physical level, obvious, on an emotional level. So I've spoken about that as the level of mammalian emotions. That is where we would find the association with romantic and feelings of attraction or feelings of repulsion. Also on the level of human intellect, to have one's minds in harmony, to match up on the level of unconditional love. And what that would mean, how do I contrast working on matching at the level of unconditional love from matching at the level of mammalian romantic emotion and emotional attachment? And the difference is that unconditional love is not a romantic love. It is a universal or cosmic love. So this is the type of love that is created with a partner when you are in mindfulness, in a state of perfect nonverbal bliss. I have described this heart center as creating an energetic tone. And so during the act of lovemaking, when you are in harmony with your partner and the equal amount of energy that you are sending out is equal to the amount of energy that is being sent back to you, then you are creating this beautiful, harmonious, unconditional love tone. And I'm going to draw a picture that's a bit more specific. We'll get into that. But you would also match up on the level of truth. That would be like having honesty in one's partnership. You would never lie in any way, not lying by faking an orgasm or pretending to have pleasure or satisfaction that wasn't there, not lying with your verbal response. If someone says, I love you, and you do not really love that person, you would not say, I love you. We're talking about matching on every level, matching on every chakra level, matching on the level of insight, and matching on the level of one's divine connection. What would this look like? Hold on a minute while I clear things about. If we have a man over here and woman over here, and we're just being super stick figure-ish in order to show who's who and what's what over here, when these two partners actually match up on every level, they form an energetic circuit. And the circuit certainly connects their physical bodies at the level of the genitals, but it also connects their emotions at the level of the emotion centers. And it connects all the way up. Yes, you connect with your partner intellectually and through the heart and unconditional love, and through honesty, and through insight, and the divine connection to source. So now let's go a little bit into the way that energy flows around this diagram. Okay, first of all, questions. I know you're all wanting to ask questions, and I'll also tell you that one of the things that has prevented me or diminished my capacity to record this lesson has been taking a little barometer reading of humanity's maturity level and the capacity to receive this information in an undistorted way. So I am endeavoring to send out this information with clarity and in the hopes that it will be received with clarity. So questions, because there's so much social taboo programmed around sexuality, it makes it difficult to even communicate about what is happening on an energetic level. So I'm going to be also asking a lot of questions for you in your voice. So the first question is, hey, Aurora, does sexual position matter? And I will tell you, yes, sexual position does matter, because here in this position, we have, people are facing one another, and there is a very different experience of intimacy with one's partner when not only are all of your chakras lining up harmoniously, but you are facing your partner and you can see their facial expression. And also, changing my pen color, ideally, these mouths connect together in a kiss and the tongues connect together. So I've spoken about in some of the meditations about how tongue placement on the roof of the mouth creates a full energetic circuit. So you understand that your tongue is a crucial aspect of energetic anatomy. So like, for example, if you have your tongue placed on the roof of your mouth like that, then you are creating this lovely circuit during meditation. And ideally during lovemaking, your tongue and your partner's tongue, of course, your lips would probably be touching a lot closer too, but you make this whole circuit so that, now I'm going back to my neutral color, so that energy is flowing essentially all around in when I say circuit, I mean an unbroken circle. Okay? Ideally, sexuality is meant to create an unbroken circuit where both partners are experiencing a tone of unconditional love because they are sending out an equal amount of what they are receiving. Remember, right now I'm giving you the ideal version of how sexuality was intended to be explored through the physical human vessel. So, for example, if you go out dancing beforehand, if you go out dancing, at a bar or wherever, in this time and place, people go out to dance before they get into bed together. The whole idea of dancing as precursor to expression of sexuality is that, dancing is a formalized and socially acceptable way of lining up all of your chakras. And I know that this might not be that evident from modern dances. A lot of modern dance steps do not involve either partners moving in tandem or even partners, holding hand. But the development of dancing, the stylized, formal practice of partner dancing, has everything to do with meeting a prospective mate, and determining whether they would be a harmonious match before you actually touch at the levels of your genitals without your clothes on. This is very different than the current approach in modern human society, as evidenced by shows such as Sex in the City, where many people determine whether someone will be a good life partner not by first connecting at higher levels and the other chakra levels and then finally connecting at the final moment at the level of the physical genitals, but instead Sex in the City promotes doing it the opposite way. First to touch genitals, and then to determine whether the rest of the non-physical aspects of self blend together harmoniously. This is very opposite to the way it is supposed to be, and it's because human sexuality has been hijacked. We'll get into that in the second lesson. But this is about the ideal world. Why do males and females dance together? And the answer is, dancing is the beginning of energetic partnership. It is the beginning of this nonverbal, kinesthetic and energetic communication and partnership, where you begin to see, what's this person's moves? What are this person's moves like? And do their moves match harmoniously with my moves? Because in order to have conception, what you need is for both partners' moves to match harmoniously. Now, this is tough because I can sense that there's a lot of questions that are going to happen about consensual relationships and rape and whether babies can be conceived in a non-consensual relationship. And the answer is yes, of course they can, and they have many, many times. So it was intended biologically that females would be the gatekeepers to determine what characteristics are passed along through the sexual reproduction and through genetic expression. In fact, you could even envision, I'm just trying to clear things up a little bit over here, you could even envision a type of filter in front of the female genitals. That's meant to look like, like a netting or like a mesh to keep certain things out. So this protective filter is meant to be in place as the deciding factor that determines, essentially who is going to be the daddy, what characteristics will be passed on genetically and impregnated in the next generation. This is really crucial because it determines the quality of the offspring and the direction that the entire species is going to take. And this filter over here is part of an aspect of the red chakra. So you could almost envision it as a whirling energy field that is part of the red chakra itself in females. There's another aspect of energetic anatomy that matters here, and that is the third eye. And I've spoken before about how this is both an aperture, like a circle or an opening that energy can go into, but it is also like a limb that can reach forward or attenuate, which is where we get the word attention from. And anything that we are thinking about with our insight, with our third eye, we are attenuating towards. So the third eye is meant to be, and it's also your imagination, it is meant to be an aspect of sexuality and reproduction in the direction that it attenuates and to whom it attenuates. So we'll get into this in part 2, but it must be understood that whatever you are thinking of sexually, whatever you are projecting your sexual ideas and feelings upon, you are attenuating to that object or individual. In healthy human sexuality, that is part of the process of conception. This attenuation that reaches out also interacts with the energy tendrils that are emanating from both the male genitals and the female genitals. I'm going to draw a different picture. Okay, this is a super simplified version here. We have the penis over here and the vagina over here. And I drew this in order for you to understand that there are lines of energy, emanations, very similar to the attenuations that come out of one's third eye that begin to connect these two crucial aspects of anatomy during the process of conception. And this has to do with lovemaking and sexuality for reproductive purposes, as opposed to the expression of pleasure and intimacy with a partner. There is no judgment in using one's body and one's anatomy to explore pleasurably the landscape, neurology, create pleasant feelings, create intimacy. But I'm speaking here about sexuality as it was intended. So it was intended to be used for reproductive purposes and for purposes of manifestation with partners. And a lot of the intentful purpose of sexuality has been hijacked or frittered away. So I'm talking about what's actually supposed to be going on. So in males, the testes are the source of life energy. That is where the reproductive material is created and these tendrils grow out of. And for females, so this actually over here, this is meant to be the uterus, but most of it goes off screen. For females, the uterus is the divine connection to source and creativity and life energy, and the tendrils come out of there. So ideally, during the act of intercourse for biological reproduction, the male is emanating tendrils that move forward into the female, and the female is emanating tendrils that move backwards into the male. And of course, these are moving in spirals, and they intertwine with each other. And this is healthy sexuality. It also must be understood that this is going on as a type of guidance because the likelihood of actually conceiving a child is minimal. People do not understand in this time and place how miraculous it is that any children are conceived and that any children are successfully fostered to term and actually given birth to. And the reason for this is that most women and most humans in this time and place are very unconscious. They are not aware of the energetic tendrils during the act of lovemaking. They are not aware of what is happening in their uterus during the moment of conception. Most people are insensate. They are anesthetized or cut off from their senses and perception and definitely not able to perceive on a energetic, sensitive, higher vibrational, higher dimensional level. And so the idea that any arrows hit the target at all is quite miraculous. If we are to envision, if this is like a target, and if this would be the cervix, and, we need to get an arrow of a sperm into that cervix, and we need to somehow find the egg and somehow fertilize the egg. Science thinks that all of this happens randomly. It doesn't happen randomly. I just I'm drawing a big giant red dot inside of the uterus there, but it's supposed to be a tiny dot, and that's supposed to be the egg, all right? So here's the testes, and here's all of these wonderful sperm that have been created, and they somehow need to find this. This is like that Woody Allen movie, right? Everything you ever wanted to know about sex. Somehow these little guys have to parachute down and find their way in. So science and objective materialists say, well, it's just a crapshoot. It's random. They jump out, and then they go where they go, and some of them hit their target, and some of them don't. I cannot tell you how wrong that presumption is. That really all of these little guys in here have GPS, and this beautiful ovum over here is sending out emanations saying, come find me, here's where I am. And part of this is also natural selection, that we are selecting for the little tiny sperm that have the capacity to listen to the female ova and find her. So now we understand that biology is influencing human cultural isms. The idea is that the female is over here, sending out her attractive waves of emanation, come find me, and that the boys are all over here, and they're saying, I don't know what's out there, but I just have this burning desire to leap forward and find something. And this is, very similar to the way that people behave at a bar or at a place where people meet in order to find mates. I'm saying here that biology has dictated human cultural isms. The woman sits here by the bar. I'm drawing a lady. She's wearing a skirt. Woman sits here by the bar, looking alluring, wearing red lipstick, and the man over here sees her and comes over and says, hey, would you like a drink? And so even the idea of males offering food and beverages to females as a form of Sexual overture comes from the animal kingdom, comes from the biology, where, I will state this very briefly, females are a bit more vulnerable because of their estrogen, that in order to be able to make an egg and carry a baby to term, females have to be bathed in estrogen. And estrogen makes it more difficult to produce muscle mass. This is why male athletes have a natural edge over female athletes in the competitive arena. Mostly I'm very much about equality and not making a distinction between the genders, but it must be noted that it is easier for males to develop and grow muscles because they have a greater natural level of testosterone in their body, and females having lower levels of testosterone and greater levels of estrogen makes it more difficult for them to build muscle mass. And so males are stronger as a generalization, but not necessarily in this time and place. And also when females are pregnant, just going to draw like a big pregnant belly here. When females are pregnant, they cannot walk around and gather food as easily as they can when they are not pregnant. And so males come over and they say, I will give you food, and if you let me impregnate you and you become unable to find your own food easily, I'll bring you more food and help you to carry your pregnancy to term. This is done throughout the animal kingdom. Male birds in the courting rituals will bring a seed to the female that they are interested in. It is all about how you get through, and here's that filter that I drew on the other drawing earlier and erased. How does a male get through this filter of female discernment? Because females are meant to be the gatekeepers determining which characteristics, which genetic characteristics the offspring of the next generation carry. It is all about females choosing the flavor of the partner that is going to create the next generation. So I know I mentioned earlier that unfortunately, in this time and place, babies are conceived through non-consensual relationships, through forced sexual contact, either rape or incest or whatever. Ideally, that is not supposed to happen because the tendrils growing forward from a female would not meet up with the tendrils growing forward from a male in a non-consensual meeting. However, sometimes the tendrils manage to find their way to an egg anyway. So you cannot say, oh, such and such person became impregnated, therefore we draw the conclusion that it was consensual, it wasn't rape. No, that's not true, unfortunately. But the way that this is the lesson about healthy sexuality, the way that things were supposed to be set up, it was meant to be that you could not force a sperm or a partner onto a female, because this goes against the free will of the universe. This goes against sovereignty, and we're talking about the system that was set up by a highly intelligent, higher dimensional creator to ensure that it is a pure system. So the whole idea is that partners connect on all of these non-physical levels. Partners are connecting on all of these non-physical levels through dance and through speaking and through, all sorts of other forms of sharing, and then eventually come to connect on the physical level of the genitals. Let's also talk about arousal and fertility. So we are taught in school, according to science, that humans are the only mammals that mate out of season. Well, yes, humans are absolutely supposed to have a mating season or an appropriate time to be aroused, and humans are supposed to have an appropriate connection between, let me find a good picture here, between the orange emotion centers and the red chakra of sexuality and arousal. These two aspects of sexuality are meant to be tied together and yoked together so that males could not be aroused by something that is not emotionally appropriate to be aroused by. When we get into part 2, we'll understand how this whole system was degraded. So as I've been drawing all of these, time vortices throughout the course of these lessons, I've made it clear that this is a refinery of consciousness in order to select for certain characteristics, certain personality characteristics that get to be divine, eternal characteristics that will continue onward. Human sexuality is meant to be the same thing. This is meant to be a system, a refinery that keeps out unwanted characteristics and lets through and encourages the desirable characteristics. Okay, let's also talk about what is being thought about during the process of lovemaking. So this person should be attenuating to this person, and this person should be attenuating to this person. And they should be forming, a perfect circuit with their lips and tongue, and with also their penis and vagina. And during the act of lovemaking, and remember, it is lovemaking, unconditional love. That means that this partner is giving out an equal amount of energy that is coming back to her, and same thing with this partner. During the act of love-making, these two partners are attenuating to one another, and they are in control of their mind and their consciousness, and they are thinking about what they wish to manifest. They are understanding that what their mind is thinking of is absolutely having an impact on the process of conception during lovemaking. Let's talk about what happens during lovemaking. During lovemaking, energy collects in a reservoir at the base of the spine of both partners, circulates up through the chakras, and eventually leaves joyously and explosively through the top of the head. Energy can go in another pattern, which I describe in sun-gazing techniques, which is up through the chakras, out through the top of the head, and then circulating back around through the heart and out through the chest. And ideally, or you can go out through the top of the head and out through the third eye. Ideally, this is what you do with partners. And what I'm describing is tantric lovemaking. Tantra coming from the Far Eastern Hindu tradition, which is one of the keepers of the mystery school ancient information that came to us from Atlantis before the fall. I know this is a super simplified stick figure, but what I would like to show is so we've got these two beings are joined together here at the genitals, and they begin to have energy circulate here at the base of the spine, circulate here at the base of the spine, and it actually circulates through like a figure eight, both partners. And at the same time that it's doing that, it is circulating up through each individual spine and comes up through the top of the head. This one also comes up through the top of the head, and then circulates back around and goes through this person's heart. And I'll change colors. This one circulates back around and goes through this person's heart. This becomes a complete circuit and a perpetual motion machine. Also, this is not meant to happen every single night or every single morning or several times a night. This was intended to be a sacred, almost ritual act where the entire month of fertility leads up to one amazing night of exploring fertility and conception. So the female reproductive cycle is that there's 1 week of being fallow and not being interested in sexuality at all, 1 week of really being ovulating and being very interested in sexuality, and 2 weeks that border. In the second half of this lesson, we will get into why this matters to human society and the imbalance of the sexes. But for right now, this portion of this lesson is completed. Please tune in for part 2 with unhealthy lessons of sexuality.